It's so good to see you tonight. You know, I've been a pastor now for almost 15 years and read that story many, many times. It's hard for me to connect with it, and I'm a pastor. Because when my kids were born, it was in nice hospitals. I didn't have to do a census. It was a whole different experience for me, and so I have almost nothing in common with Mary and Joseph. I know nothing of what it's like to live in poverty. I know nothing of what it's like to have a foreign government oppressing me. I know what it's like to have the IRS do it, but not a foreign government. And so when I read the Christmas story, it's hard for me to get in the zone and figure out what that is. And so part of the job of a pastor is to understand what that world was like in Jesus' day and find ways to connect it to ours. And I'm not going to lie, that's a challenge because we don't live in any kind of way that Mary and Joseph did. So one of the things that I've done to try to understand who this church is, who this area is, I've been here 4 years. This is my fourth Christmas. And it's taken me a while to figure out who lives here. I've been in Miami. I've been in Southern California. I'm from Seattle. I did doctoral work in Chicago. I did Christmas one year in Germany. I've been all over. But you guys are special. You guys are special, and I want to just tell you why. You know, with the help of some technology and some demographic research, I was able to find out who you are in a couple different ways. These are the top 3 brands for women's clothes, for example, for people that live in a 5-mile radius of this church. Do you know what they are? Take a wild guess. Lululemon is number 1. Lululemon is number 1. The next one, Tory Burch. If you don't know what that is, ask your wife. And anthropology. Anthropology, I don't know if, does anyone know what those are? Some of you are like, I'm rocking it right now. I know exactly what this is. All right, for men, what do you think the top 3 brands for men are? It's debatable. Here we are. The number 1, and it's a kind of a tie, and it just grouped it as like golf stuff. It was Peter Millar and Travis Matthew, so that's like the number 1 brand for dudes if you live within like a 5-mile radius of here. Another one was, it gave a collection of brands too. It was anything related to the Buckeyes. So Buckeye gear was number 2. You are always safe, whether you are going to a wedding or a church service or anything you do. If you show up with Buckeye stuff, people will go, that's cool, I get it. But the third one surprised me the most. Do you know what the third most popular one for guys was? Also Lululemon. Also Lululemon. I don't know who they are, but if you're rocking those ABC pants, that's okay. Where are my Kirkland signature people? That's my style. Yes, yes. You know what's funny is, you get to know an area and what they like and who they are and how they dress. But the dress that someone wears is very superficial. That's just what you see on the outside. But what's going on in the hearts of the people that live in this area? How many people here in the room today live about within a 5-mile radius of the church? How many? Put them up. A handful. And there's a lot from far away. So this is good for those of you that are visiting. You're going to figure out how these people operate real quick. These are some of the things that I've learned about the people that live in this area and why I think it's hard for the gospel to connect with them. The first one is this. People that live in this area are high achievers. They are high achievers. And so studies show over 75% of people that live within a 3-mile radius of Liberty have a college education. And many have much higher than that. So you all are, for the most part, not all, but many are a highly educated group of people. In fact, the average household income within a 3-mile radius of Liberty, I hate to even say it out loud, but it's over $180,000. Now, it doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum, but I moved here and I was like, these people are Ohio? I don't understand what's happening here. But this is an extremely educated and affluent area for the most part, and many of you know this. The number 1 employer in our area, do you know who it is? J.P. Morgan Chase. So you're all bankers, or you don't like them. You're in one of those 2 categories. When I lived in Miami, we joked that there were only 2 kinds of people, trainers and people that had them. But here, it's J.P. Morgan people. And so this is a very unique area. But what does that say about the kinds of folks that live here? One is they probably have very little in common with Jesus and Joseph and Mary, because their kids weren't born in stables and they didn't have to put them in straw. Instead, they're born into a high-achieving culture where every day when they wake up, their job is to be competitive and to do better than the next person and to climb a corporate ladder and then keep climbing and then keep climbing and then keep climbing. That's not an easy way of life. How does Jesus speak to people that are always trying to achieve and trying to measure up to other people and wondering if they measure up enough? That's a tough question. One other thing I've learned about people that live in this area is that they love their children. They love their children. In fact, if you move to this area, do you know the number one reason why people want to move to this area? Schools. Why? And the number one reason why people who don't have children want to move out of this area? Taxes for those schools, right? So it's a messy area, but in this area, it astounded me. When I moved here, come springtime, the number one way you can show that you matter and you've done a good job in life is to have a huge banner across your lawn for what school your kid is going to go to when they graduate. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so this area prides themselves on schools and raising kids and perfect families. So they're high achievers, but they also love their children. And I'm going to say, this is going to sound crazy, almost too much. You know, my kids are in sports here and dance and all the things that you do. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And here's what I know, is my goal as a dad was not only to get him onto a soccer team, but then to do what? Get him onto the best soccer team. And sometimes that meant doing anything that I could to be competitive and help him get the best chance of success. Because if I could just get him one more opportunity, then maybe they'll be one more step closer to being successful or whatever that thing is. They're on a team, for example, where he not only has practices multiple days a week, but then I get extra opportunities I can pay for private coaching and all those things. And here's what I've learned about this area. There's almost no length to which a parent won't go and that a grandparent almost won't help fund in order to help their kids look the most successful and do everything that they weren't able to do themselves. That's what defines this area. And so you're high achievers, but then we pass that burden on to our kids as well and hope that they'll be high achievers. What's the challenge with that? Think hard about that for just a second. The two challenges is if you don't end up with a perfect family, you feel like a failure. And you're not sure what to do with that. The other challenge with that, of course, is that for most of our kids, that's a burden that's too heavy for them to carry. So what that means is they grow up feeling like they're not good enough, that they haven't done a good enough job. And our kids in this area, we know, based on what we read and study, and trust me, our youth pastors know this to no end, our kids are struggling to keep up with the pressures that not only society, but also parents and families put on them. So we live in a high-achieving place that cares deeply about families. But here's another thing I've learned about this area, is that it loves to make everything look like it's under control. So again, I've been in other places, and it was normal in Miami. This was downtown Miami, for example, where we had full-time security because we had homeless that would sleep on the steps of the church. That's a normal thing when you're in an urban setting, that just you bump up against people that don't look like you or talk like you or have the same socioeconomic status as you. Since I moved here, I can count on one hand the number of folks I've seen wandering through my neighborhood. In fact, this is a true story. I live in a neighborhood not too far away, just over here, and one day I left my garage door open. And I left it open and I went to work. I got a phone call from the police asking if they could shut it for me. That's the kind of neighborhood around here. Now, it's not perfect, of course, and it's not always like that. But, when we're, coming back from wherever we sometimes travel to or go, my kids always know we're getting close to home when they see the white picket fences around town. And when they see those fences, my kids will go, oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. It's almost perfect here in many ways. This church, nearly perfect. It's gorgeous. You drive around this place, almost every restaurant you could ever want, every convenience you could almost ever dream of, and if you don't get it, Amazon will deliver it to you in about 6 hours. We've curated a near perfect life in this part of the world, and in fact, most people I meet from Ohio wouldn't want to go anywhere else because this is exactly how it's supposed to be. But of course, is that how the real world is? Is that what it's going to be like for our kids? One of the deep-seated fears that people have is that the good life that we've been able to curate not only insulates us from the real world, but we're not sure how long we're able to keep it out. The other day, my kids were playing one of those video games where there's other people playing with them. And, I don't know who they are, and so I have to be really nervous about how technology's breaking its way into my perfect little world that I've created. And of course, 50 years from now, what's the world going to look like? We hear of war and rumors of war in different parts of the world. But you and I, if we're really honest and objective for half a second, have to realize that if you live within driving distance of this place, you live in probably one of the nicest parts of the nicest countries in the history of the world. I don't know if you know that. But what does that mean? It means you think you can control reality, but in truth, there are so many things out of your control. And that creates a little underlying tension knowing that you're not going to be able to make everything perfect forever. I've got kids, and I don't know how that's going to go. But another thing I've learned about this area that I think is really interesting is that this isn't a place with porches, it has garages. When I drive into my house, I pull into a driveway, and I love it. Like I said before this, I lived in Southern California, and even though our house there was worth more, we had to double park our cars in order to get into our driveway and fight for parking spots on the street in order to live. It was a tough place to be, but here, man, you can stretch out. It's got space around here, and I love it. When we first moved here, probably one of the coolest experiences of my entire life was there was a room in our house that I just didn't use. It made me feel so good, like I'd arrived in life. I'm like, I don't need this room, but I have this room, just in case. But one of the things that's tough about that is that we're all in communities, and we all have houses, but there's no real spot to create real community where you just hang out and are with other people. Sometimes you experience this, and sometimes you find it. But often one of the challenges in our world is we live like Facebook and Instagram are real places, and that we don't really know the people that live around us. I send out Christmas cards every year. I don't know if you do that. We send out Christmas cards, and we don't send just normal Christmas cards. We get our whole family all dressed up, and we go to a professional person that takes our photo, and then we get them printed by someone, who knows what they're doing. And of course, all this is done by my wife. I don't know how it really works, but she does a great job doing it. And that's our Christmas photo, where it's like this pretty little happy family. I was tempted one year just to go through my Photos app on my iPhone and realize, all right, whatever photo we get to is the one we're going to use this year. Because that's who my real family is. My real family isn't the one that shows up on a Christmas card. It's not the one that you see on Christmas Eve, and you all do look really good, by the way. But I know this isn't you in about 2 hours. In about 2 hours, what happens is the jackets come off and the feet go up, and families start to argue, and they do all the normal things families do. But one of the challenges in a place where everyone tries to have the appearance of looking good is it creates a culture that's not authentic and real. And instead, we like to have connections that are a mile wide, but the people that actually know us, that are friends with us, that we can talk to about what's going on in our lives are often barely counted on one hand, if at all. And so that's the culture we live in. We live in a culture that's high achieving, that's family focused, that likes to have everything under control and likes to look good all the time. And I'm wondering, how in the world does a manger have anything to do with the world that we live in? Because it's not immediately apparent. So in the last few minutes, what I'd like to do is help remind you why we still do this church thing. Jesus was alive 2,000 years ago. It's been a while. But there's some of us, including myself, that think that why Jesus came and the message that he brought is the most important message in the history of the world because it speaks to all the challenges that I face. Here's what I know, is that when it comes to high achieving, I fall into that trap all the time. I don't just want to be a pastor, I need to be the best pastor. I want to be better than all the other pastors so that when I go to pastor conferences and they ask me how big my church is, guess what I want to say? I don't know, bigger than yours probably. Just teasing, I don't say that. But I want to, because deep inside my heart, I'm just like everyone else. I don't want to be honest about who I am and all the struggles that I have. I want to make it look like I'm better achieving than everyone that I know. I also know this. I'm not immune to the challenges of parenting and raising kids. Trust me, when there's an opportunity for my kids to take a step ahead of other kids, I take that step. Not because I trust God, not because I'm listening to what my kids want. It's because I'm doing what's best for them so that they can be successful, while simultaneously underneath the surface wondering, God, am I doing the right thing? I also have to be honest with you. I kind of like living in a place where I don't have any stress. I like knowing that Target's this far away. I like knowing that I can get to everything that I need in a few seconds. I like knowing that no one's going to knock on my door and ask for help, because that would be inconvenient and not easy. One of the best things that I've ever done in my life that's helped me is take a mission trip to Honduras or to Africa, or take my kids and my family down to street church, where we go to neighborhoods for folks where a mom will show up in a car, and there will be an entire car full of kids with runny noses that don't have enough food to eat. And it's a reminder to me that the world that I live in isn't the real world. It's a real place, but it's not like the rest of the places. And somehow that makes me feel like a more authentic human, like I actually might have purpose. And it's not just to control and micromanage a convenient environment for myself. But lastly, one of the things that I've learned about myself is that I have a tendency, maybe like some of you, is to kind of hide who I really am, because if I told people what I was really struggling with and what was really going on in my life, maybe someone wouldn't like me. Or maybe the shame that I have inside, if I let it out, would only make me feel more shamed and more judged. Is there a place where people can go and find real community, where you don't have to try harder to be accepted, where your kids don't have to be perfect, where things aren't always in control, and that's okay because you can trust that someone is and it's not you? If you're hungry for any of those things, that's why Jesus came the way that he did. He didn't come to be successful. In fact, he showed up as an immigrant under persecution. When he was born, he had to flee. He also couldn't control his circumstances. He didn't know how things were going to go. In fact, Joseph, who was married to Mary, but not the dad, you know that story. It's complicated, right? But he was told in a dream that after Jesus was born, I can imagine Mary and Joseph thinking to themselves, man, I wish we could just create this perfect little house for our family. But instead they were told in a dream that Herod was being threatened by the power Jesus might have, and that they had to flee to Egypt and be refugees for many years. Jesus didn't live in a perfect place, and I have a hunch, if you're honest with yourself, some of those things that you struggle with, that's exactly why Jesus came. I was reminded this week of a story that Ernest Hemingway told. And it calls me back to who I am when I'm honest with myself. This is the story that he tells. That there was a dad and a son who got in a big argument. And it was an adult son, and like a 20-year-old. And if my parents are listening, hi, Mom and Dad, they often live stream this too. You know what it's like to have young adults in your house who think that they know everything, especially kids like me, and I was the worst. But I remember getting in fights with my parents, and the way this story goes is there's a dad and a son. And they don't know what the argument was about, but they left that argument where the son just stormed out, and the dad said, I never want to see you again. And the son said, glad, I don't ever want to see you again either. And this was in Spain, the way that he tells the story. And the way it worked is this father and the son get into this heated argument, and the son runs to his room, packs up all the stuff into his bag, gets his suitcase, and walks out and leaves. And for like the first couple hours, the way that it went down is they're happy with their decision. They're really happy because he's right and he's right, and they don't have to deal with each other anymore. There's a lot of families that I know inside this church, and trust me when I tell you that the church is not full of good, perfect people. It's full of sinners, and I'm one of them. But the way this story works is the father and the son separate. And the son moves to Madrid, and so it was a bustling city. I don't know if you've been to Madrid. This story takes place in the 30s, but the son moves to Madrid and disappears, and this was pre-iPhone days. You can't track anyone down. And so after a few weeks go by, the father starts to wonder, I think I made a mistake. In fact, I barely even remember what we were fighting about. Here's what I know is Christmas is coming, and I don't even know how to get in contact with my son, and I don't even know if he wants to come home. But what started to happen in this dad's heart as he was separated from his son was that he was like, you know what, whatever we were fighting about, I'd change anything if he could just come home. I just don't know what to do. And his son's name was Paco. And so what he did is he had a brilliant idea. He said, you know what, I gotta go find him. I don't know how to find him. Nowadays we put trackers on our kids. None of that was available in the 1930s. And so the dad does what his only best idea that he had is he takes out an ad in the paper. He takes out an ad, and it was just one sentence because he couldn't afford too much money. But the sentence in the newspaper that he wrote was, Paco, it's your dad. Meet me at Hotel Montaña at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I forgive you, Papa. That was all the line said, and so he puts that in the newspaper. And the next day, he shows up early, and he doesn't know what to do. He's nervous because he doesn't know if his son even saw the newspaper ad. He doesn't know if his son's still in Madrid. He knows nothing, but he was willing to take any chance possible to be able to find his son again. And so he goes there, and he shows up way early just because he's nervous and he doesn't know what to do. And he shows up, and he could have never imagined what he would find. There were 800 men named Paco who had all shown up, who all thought that ad might have been for them. There's a universal need and desire to be forgiven and to be loved unconditionally, where you don't have to try really hard in order to be loved. And also there's a place where all of us hunger for, where we can just be ourselves, where someone knows all of our weaknesses and we don't have to try to be someone else. That's the good news of the gospel. So one of the reasons why he came like in a manger, the way that he did, because he wanted to show us that he's humble and that he doesn't come with judgment. And he doesn't come with a heavy-handed fist, but instead the God of the universe, when he decided to show up and show us who he is, he decided to show up in a place that no one cared about, that was very poor, and that was very humble. So that for all the Pacos of the world who felt like the God had left them and abandoned them and didn't care about them, that the God of the universe would show up right to where they are and remind them, you're exactly the reason why I came. There is no end of the world that the God of the universe wouldn't go, and no depth or height or length or breadth which the God of the universe wouldn't go in order to show how much he's willing to reconcile and love the children that he made. And I don't know who you are, most of you, but I imagine many of you know what it's like to feel empty and lost, and wonder if there's hope and forgiveness, and if you could be loved. And if you're in that category, the good news of Christmas is that the reason why he came the way he did was so that you would know that you are not outside of his love. He came humble in a manger so that the lowest valley and the deepest pit we ever find ourselves in, Jesus demonstrates that he's willing to go there to find you too. Friends, Merry Christmas. The good news of the gospel isn't that we just gather and open presents, is that we celebrate that in Jesus we discover a kind of love that even people in Powell need. Because it turns out even we are exhausted trying to prove that we're good enough. And sometimes just want to say, I'm tired of this rat race that I run. I'm just ready to step off and rest. I haven't rested in a long time. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. For all of the people that think that they need to build perfect families, you know what Jesus did? He was married out of wedlock, and he was a refugee, and he didn't have status. So for anyone that comes from a family that isn't perfect, trust me when I say Jesus knows exactly what that's like. For anyone who thinks that they can just control and micromanage their circumstances and are stressed when they can't, like maybe you lose a job, Or maybe someone in your family dies unexpectedly, or something goes out of control and you wonder what's happening. Even Jesus knows what that was like, because when he was headed to the cross, he said, God, thy will be done, but I don't know what to do. And he wept and he cried, because even the Son of God knows what it's like to wonder if God really loves him and is in control. And lastly, if you hunger for a place where you can be yourself and be loved unconditionally as you are, you should know this. That's why he made the church. That's why he made the church. One of the things I love about being a pastor of this church is that, trust me when I say, nearly every kind of human that could possibly exist goes here. We have everyone who's left and right politically. We have young and old. We have nice and not so nice. And we love them nonetheless. Our vision here at Liberty is to be a place where grace is always found and all people are welcomed into our historic family of faith, not because we like taglines, but because we want to be like the Savior who started that kingdom project in the first place. So tonight you're invited back home to a Savior who loves you and invites you into the kind of community and faith that your heart has always hungered for. Will you bow your heads and pray with me? God, we thank you for coming at Christmas the way you did, in a manger with humility. This Christmas evening, we thank you that no matter what newspaper ad we might need, you offer it to us this evening. We pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.